All right.
What's up, peoples?
All right, we are live for another episode of Everything to Gain. Thank you so much to everybody joining us. We are here to talk about making positive changes in your life. This is episode 17. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Aaron Makelky. We will find out why he is called the ChatGPT teacher. And I want to actually give a shout out too, real quick, to all of our viewers on LinkedIn Live, as well as Twitch at E2G Show, as well as YouTube Live at E2G Show. So we're broadcasting live today, as always. So we invite your questions. Please enter your questions into the chat, and we will answer them in real time. So today we welcome Aaron Makelky. He is at the grassroots forefront of digital transformation, teaching how AI can help anyone from high school all the way to retirement age. And so for the past few years, Aaron has been documenting his journey and his teachings on social media with millions of views and likes. You can follow him at, and we'll get this for you right here. You can follow him at aaronmakelky.com or at Aaron Makelky. So, Aaron, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Dan and Mark, for having me on. I've been a longtime viewer, so it's fun to be on this side of the show.
Well,
Great.
Now you know how the sausage is made, right? So
I'm about to find out.
It's gonna be fun. Don't worry.
Excellent.
So, Aaron, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so you're a history teacher and a sports coach?
I'm a mediocre history teacher and a semi-retired sports coach turned TikTok poster, apparently, and ChatGPT teacher.
How'd that happen?
And so how did this happen? Like what kind of a person are you to have this happen?
I'm the kind of person who wants to learn from my students, not just teach them stuff. And on a fateful day in November of 2022, I had a student show me, of all things, a TikTok video and say, "There's this thing called ChatGPT. I thought you would want to check it out." And my first response was like, "Oh gosh, it's on TikTok." And then my second one was like, "How do I find that? I don't even have TikTok." And that was a long time ago, because now I have TikTok. But I went home and watched it, and I was like, "What is this? How can it come up with open-ended answers?" I've seen, multiple choice cheat sheets and answer keys and solving math, but like, how can it write a paragraph about seemingly random things that I give it instructions on? And I didn't know what to think, but the one thing I was sure of is this is going to change the way that we teach and the way that everybody learns if we can figure it out.
Yeah.
And so then you're teaching how to use it, right? And it's as a teacher's role, like you're just helping them along.
Well, at first I didn't know how to use it myself. So I didn't know how to teach it to kids or what they should be doing with it. And my first response was, I got to figure this out, but I don't know if it's okay. Is it, legal? Will my boss let me? Is it ethical? And what I did is I just went home in January of 23 and I said, I'll do all my own assignments that I give kids with ChatGPT exclusively. And then I'll figure out, what can it do and how do you get good at it in a low risk way? Because what am I going to do? Get in trouble for cheating on my own essay that I assigned? I'm the teacher.
What were your impressions doing that, Aaron? What'd you think when you did it?
At first, I thought this is terrible. It talks like a try-hard college professor. That was the tone, which I teach at mostly 11th grade. And I'm like, that's not how my kids talk. It'd be so easy to tell if they use this. But that's when I thought all it could do is write my answer for me. That's all I knew how to do at first.
And so how did you get the name the ChatGPT teacher?
Well, I don't know how many people know me by that, but there are a few, because I covered, of all classes, this was a mistake. I covered an English class of one of my colleagues who's a great teacher. And it was midway through the semester, I had been using ChatGPT and kids had a task. And my brain kept going, okay, ChatGPT could totally do this better and faster. Should I tell these kids that aren't my real students as this sub, or should I just shut up? And anybody who knows me is like, he didn't shut up. He said something. And so I got up in front of the class. I was like, guys, do what your teacher wants, but here's another way you could do this. And I don't even know those students. One of them saw me walking across the street a few days later, and he pointed across the sidewalk across the street from me, and he goes, "Hey, look, it's the Chat GPT teacher." And
it's stuck.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what? I'll embrace that. He could have called me the lazy teacher or the bad teacher. I'll take the Chat GPT teacher any day.
It's a good rep to have, bro.
That's so funny. That's so funny. I want to give a shout out to a couple of our viewers on YouTube. We have Way Too Geeky, our good friend Way Too Geeky. Thanks for joining us today, as well as Jethro Jones. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate the comments. Again, to the audience, if you have any questions, please enter them into the chat.
I want to comment real fast. Jethro makes the comment here about thank goodness for aware kids. I think that these kids in general have been the driving force in the whole AI dispersion, let's call it, at least in the school level, both at the college and under. You're an anomaly, I really think, Aaron, and not in that you're learning it and teaching it and trying to figure out ways to apply it.
Yeah, and I think it's just I'm an experimenter where a lot of people are waiting for the textbook to come out that instructs us on how to do it. I was like, I don't know. By the time that comes out, it's too late and the textbook's outdated. So I guess I got to go figure it out on my own.
Right.
So what would this replace?
Everything. That's what's unique about it. You know, it doesn't replace Google search or Google Docs or citing, sources. It does all of that. And in varying degrees based on the skill of the user. That's one thing that's really unique. So it's not a simple replacement. Take out this tool, put that tool in. It's like a whole new bundle of tools that's never existed in human history.
So it replaces many things. It's almost like having like somebody working for you, right? That's free, essentially free, that can do your work for you.
Yeah. In fact, can I use one of my students' analogies?
Yes.
So shout out to Caleb if he's on the stream. He's helped me in this journey. He's a former student. He goes, I think of ChatGPT as the overexcited intern that thinks it knows everything and never sleeps. And you should probably like double check what it brings back to you. But it's like this eager beaver, or if you're a teacher, it's like having the ultimate teacher's assistant. And you can turn it loose on anything. I was like, oh man, that's such a good analogy. So that was not mine, that was Caleb's. But that's how I view it. As a teacher, it's like having a mentor and a proofreader and someone who can source things and, give you feedback and help you reflect. Like that bundle of tools has never existed before in one place, and now it does.
Aaron, what was the reaction from the colleagues as you started to apply this, started to find ways that you could explore it?
Yeah. This is the power of the internet, right? Colleagues like Jethro, I would consider him a colleague. We go nerd out about this stuff and he gives me ideas and humbles me with how little I know about AI. But then sometimes you go back into your physical workspace and that teacher next door is like, what are you doing? And last year there was some pushback, and I love my English teachers, but a lot of them view it as a threat because they thought the essay was sacred. You can't cheat on an essay unless you plagiarize from a website, copy paste. Because you couldn't generate open-ended text, and now you can. And a lot of them view that as a threat to one of their sacred cows. And I go, well, I'm a social studies teacher. I have kids write constructed response and essays and research papers. That sacred cow is dead, and you can try to give it CPR and bring it back, but it's not coming back. We have to change how we teach.
I'd be curious your thoughts on this real fast. If I feel as if the kids that know how to write will do better because they know how to prompt. But the kids, if you don't know how to write, then you're already behind. It doesn't really, like you said, replace writing. It's just another tool. And I think that they're overlooking that.
Absolutely. And it's not a substitution. It doesn't go, okay, now no one writes ever. It means it's a sidecar, a co-pilot, an intern that helps you write and augments your writing. It doesn't replace you. It's like giving you superpowers, but you still have to get out of bed and use them.
Mm.
So have you ever done kind of like the race between students that are going to use AI versus doing it the old school way?
All the time. In fact, that first semester when I did my assignments, I put ChatGPT on my projector screen. So picture the front board has, my chat log, and kids are over here typing and looking at the source and doing one sentence at a time. And they see my screen. They're like, how did you get 3 pages done that fast? Like, what are you doing? And I purposely did that. It's just my personality. I was kind of antagonizing them, so I wanted them to ask, like, what is that? When can we use that? And, I told Dan, that's like, you're sitting there in a canoe and you're rowing as fast as you can. And then somebody blows by you in a jet boat. Eventually you're like, can I get a jet boat too? This isn't working.
Yeah, absolutely. So, by the way, shout out to Rob Corey. His comment, overexcited intern. I love Caleb's definition of chat GPT, which is awesome. Rob, thanks for your comment. Appreciate you joining us today. So we have this disconnect, right? So kids that are being told the old school way of doing things, right? They're, they're still using essentially paper and pencil, right? They may have their laptops, but they're still essentially using paper and pencil, going to Google or Wikipedia or whatever method, right? And now you're bringing this to the classroom. So you're teaching AI skills and prompting without really teaching AI skills, it seems.
Yeah, and I think to connect back to something Mark said, I mean, good writers are going to be great writers with ChatGPT, and bad writers are going to be just as bad, if not worse, using ChatGPT because they don't have the fundamentals. And I think that's totally true. I also wanted to connect a couple of things, like what Jethro's saying. You could give me some fancy construction equipment and give me a bulldozer. I don't know how to drive it. I'm not better because I have this tool. It just allows someone who has those fundamentals to be more efficient or get more done or be more productive. And one of the misnomers I think personally with AI is AI literacy is just literacy. I mean, prompting is just giving instructions. That's why I think the best people to use it and teach others are English teachers and history teachers, because we're all about language and the human side. I don't think it's the computer techie programmer people that maybe understand the guts of how it works. It's more about, can you give instructions? Can you reiterate those and clarify those? Can you read and write and comprehend? That's AI literacy. It's just through a chat bot instead of literacy being from a novel or from poetry like it used to be.
I feel like that ties into your EQ, IQ messaging, Dano, where you have the technologists of the old days have to learn these skills, and now the people that really weren't technology folks can kind of learn. So this tool is a bridge between skill sets, in my view.
Right. Absolutely. Right. So an AI will most likely never be as human as a human. Right. And so that's why EQ will outstrip IQ, because there will always be smarts within an AI or within search, from a basic level, right? It will always be there and always be accessible. Now it's being served up. So shout out to Hamid. Mohammed, thank you so much for your comment. It's indeed another tool, a very useful one, actually, especially when you get better with prompt making. Hamid, thank you so much for joining us today. So what's the feedback from the students, that have taken your classes?
Yeah, so I really explicitly started teaching those skills last year for the first time because I was experimenting myself initially. A lot of it is just disbelief. It's almost like a Wizard of Oz. How could this possibly work? Because they've only seen videos of it, or they've been afraid to try because they think it's cheating. And usually that's their first response, is like, whoa, it's got superpowers. And then as they learn more about like prompting and iterating and having it cite its sources, they realize, okay, it does have limitations. It's not perfect. It can't do everything for me. And one of those I'll wear as a badge of honor. I started class in the fall semester with a survey about how often do you use AI, what tools, do you have concerns about it, just to get a gauge of where my students were. And I had a few that were on the skeptical side of the scale. And I'm skeptical too. Historians are all skeptical. Like by default, I don't believe anybody who says anything. You have to convince me. And I love that about my students. One of them was very skeptical about it ethically, like copyright infringement, taking from creators and artists. And after seeing some other ways to use it in our class, like retrieval augmented generation, which shout out to Jethro, you're the one that really gave me the best examples of that. And I stole it and showed my students, where you're taking from a doc of your own and having it help you digest your own creation. I had a student who had a lot of concerns. And he's like, oh, I never knew AI could look at just a document of your own. I thought it always pulled from the internet, like everyone's blog and everyone's website. And so some of those have come around and said, like, I guess I didn't really understand it when I was critical or skeptical of it.
Real quickly for the listeners, you can download everything you ever have posted on LinkedIn. It'll send you a doc, and you can upload that into this thing, and it will learn you.
And can I add one, Mark? That's awesome. I didn't know this until the other day. If you've been logged into ChatGPT very long, you can ask it questions about yourself. Like,
oh,
what
really?
can you tell me about my own personality? I'm not going to read on the stream what it said about mine, but it was like kind of an aha moment. Like, whoa, it kept track of all these different prompts and the type of questions I was asking. It even thought I was a kindergarten teacher because I had a son in kindergarten, and I would repeatedly go like, help me explain this to a kindergartner. So it thinks I teach high school history and kindergarten.
Shout out to Allison Wright listening right now. Allison, thank you for your comment. She says, yeah, you can use it to make your own content better. Right. To your point, Aaron, a lot of folks don't realize the different ways to apply it. They just know that it exists and it does these cool things, but you're actually getting in there, rolling your sleeves up and figuring this thing out.
Yeah. And I mean, my message to those like Christina, I love that question about the feedback from fellow teachers. It's polarized. Both ends are really far apart right now. And there's a huge gray area that are just kind of like, I'll go back to my room and keep doing my own thing until I have to change. And my take is with LinkedIn and YouTube and even TikTok, like I learned about ChatGPT from TikTok. You could go find people who are using it in your context, like a high school English teacher, a kindergartner, a marketer, a LinkedIn B2B salesperson, whatever you do. So there's no excuse not to know. You can disagree, but there's no excuse to sit back and go, I don't have any idea how I could use these things.
Yeah. I posted a piece the other day. If you're not sure how to use it, ask it.
Right. That's perfect. That's perfect. It'll actually teach you a little bit better on how to write better prompts, right? And you actually have to experiment, right? Write a prompt. If it's not going to give you what you need, I'm actually going through that right now. Like write a better prompt, write another prompt, continue tweaking and pivoting and learning, right? Which is really what we talk about a lot on this show, right? It's everything to gain. It's all about making positive changes, and you've got to continue to make those changes and be aware of that. So you're the ChatGPT teacher, as we've learned. And you've made the transition, so to speak, to now teach it at scale, right? And so we'd love to hear about how you're leveraging social media, especially TikTok, to really scale, how you do things. Instead of going from 1-to-1 to 1-to-30 or how many in class, and you've been getting millions of views.
Yeah, well, you're seeing a recurring theme, Dan. I asked my students, and we won't get into why I started a TikTok, but my 7th post, I had no idea what I was doing. And a co-teacher had an idea for a video. I went to my students and I said, do you guys think this would be cool to do? Make this video. And they're like, oh yeah, let's do it. I just flat out handed my phone to my students and said, show me how we could do it. And they're setting up tables and chairs and framing the shot, and they're hitting time lapse. I didn't even know what a time lapse was on an iPhone. Never taken one. They make a time-lapse video of all of their phones face up with their notifications dinging. And it's like this new modern art form we accidentally created. And they picked the song, they taught me how to do a voiceover. I post it. It's 4:00. I go home. Probably 6 or 7 o'clock that night, I get a text from a teacher, and she goes, hey, your TikTok has 55,000 views. And deadpan, like, I don't know what's good on TikTok. I go, is that good or bad? Like, are you making fun of me? She's like, no, I don't know anyone that has 55,000 views. And I was like, okay, whatever, go to sleep. The next day I come to school, and like that day it hit 1 million. And people kept coming and telling me, and I was like, do I get money for this? Do I get like a TikTok plaque? What does that even mean? And
That's
the
awesome.
takeaway was you can learn a lot from your students, and sometimes you just have to hand over the reins. And they taught me, how to use CapCut and how to post and trim and do all this stuff that I had no idea how to do. And that one video, especially, has just kind of spiraled out of control at this point.
Awesome.
But dude, you're leveraging your network, right? It brings it full circle, right? You're inspired by TikTok to use ChatGPT, and now you're using TikTok to teach ChatGPT. It's all coming to full circle.
Kudos to you for the willingness to learn it as well, Aaron.
Well, and I have a superpower, and I've never been embarrassed to do dumb things in front of people, because I usually just did them in front of 30 high school kids. Now I do it in front of millions of bored people on TikTok.
So Allison is asking in the chat, what do you think that the students are afraid of about ChatGPT? You said that some of them are nervous.
Yeah. Copyright infringement and taking from artists has been the most common one. I just had a discussion with a student about that today. Environmental impact is one, like the electricity and water consumption.
Wow.
That's been a big thing. I gotta say, I am in Wyoming. We do have electricity here, and the newest nuclear power plant in America is going in Wyoming, and Bill Gates orchestrated that. And my understanding is 3 Mile Island, that's getting kind of rebooted. Yep. And the Natrium power plant in Kemmer, Wyoming is going to basically fuel AI compute, because that's one of the bottlenecks in the system. And kids have said, like, well, what's the long-term impact, the CO2 emissions and the water consumption from that? I think the other one is privacy. They go, what happens when we train ChatGPT to get better at all of these things that we know? What does that leave us?
That's so impressive, by the way.
Right.
I mean,
how old?
That's some really esoteric stuff for a high schooler to be asking.
It's amazing.
If you guys met my second block, my man Ezra, that dude, he knows more than I do, and I have a master's degree. That was from him. So shout out to him if he's on the stream, because he's always the one that every day I'll teach him, like, Perplexity, we're searching and doing this, and he'll be like, have you thought of this ethical concern that I have with what you taught us? And I'm like, no, awesome. But thank you.
Wow, Ezra, nice. We love to see that. We love to see that. So we'll all be working for Ezra one day, probably, right? So, which is totally cool.
And here's one that he said: what happens when so much of the content online is becoming AI generated, and you're training AI on online content? Do you get this flywheel effect of AI generated content feeding AI engines, and it's like training itself? Because when they put out ChatGPT and trained it on the internet 2 years ago, generative AI wasn't publicly available. So no blog post was ChatGPT copy and paste like half of them are today. And his concern was like, so what are you going to train it on? And how can you self-select out AI generated content in the training model?
So
go ahead, Dana.
It seems like that Ezra figured out the dead internet theory on his own.
Define that for the listeners who don't know it, Dana.
Actually, I'll let Aaron.
Well, I love that theory. I've heard that so many times. I made a post and a YouTube video this summer called the dead essay theory, because I think that's what's happened to how we teach essays. They're dead. But the idea is the internet used to be my tweet, and then Mark responds, and then Dan retweets it, and it's human created content. If I have an AI agent that tweets whatever, in my Apple Notes every day, and Mark has an AI agent that likes any post about ChatGPT, and Dan has an automated, agentive workflow that retweets Mark's stuff, it's like all of our AI bots just talk to each other, and all this chatter on the internet is no longer human controlled or initiated. That's my understanding.
I agree with you. It gets even worse if there's any type of filters or censoring devices to make sure it's getting rid of fake content. When the fake content is the majority of the internet, if we ever get there, then the human actual content is being eliminated because it looks fake. So that's the fear. And
one of the best points, kids have this misconception. They go, one way to tell if it's AI generated is it doesn't have spelling mistakes. And I whisper to them and I go, what if you told it to put in some random spelling mistakes? And they're like, oh. So English teachers, please don't get mad at me, but I may have shown my students that.
That is awesome.
There's also a point here. Actually, Isabella has a comment here. Teaching the importance of using this powerful tool responsibly is crucial to ensuring our student success. You probably feel that way, I would imagine, Aaron.
Yeah, but so here's the thing that I would say after being in the classroom. You have to also accept they're going to overdo it and use it inappropriately at first, because all the people who push back against it, please do. It's more fun in the chat. But kids are learning it from some bro on TikTok in his dorm room who I've screenshotted this before. He has a shiesty. If you don't know what that is, you must not have teenagers. But it's like a t-shirt ninja mask, and he's like whispering how to cheat with ChatGPT. That's who they're learning it from. If people like us, Jethro isn't teaching it in Arizona this week, then those kids would have been like cheating off the TikTok video. So we have to accept that that's happening. By the way, kids cheated when it was paper and pencil. They had a cheat sheet tucked in their pocket or wrote it on their hand, right? Cheating is not new in the human experience.
Pull back the sleeve, right? Pull back the sleeve, it's on your arm.
Yeah, I mean, you guys back in college probably had a stone tablet and a chisel, and you chiseled something in before you took the test. So like everybody's done it. Every generation's different.
The pharaohs would never let us bring those into classroom.
I wish I had a stone tablet. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
So, but Aaron, you did have a quote that I loved, and I'm gonna put it up on the screen right now. And I'd love to hear you talk about this.
Yeah, so I tell my students this before it was social media. Let's take Instagram. I'd say, hey, how much do you guys pay to use Instagram? And they're like, what do you mean? No one pays. It's free. And I said, well, I mean, it's a product. And if you're not paying with your credit card, like, how are you paying? And they'd always be like, oh, I don't know. It's free. I was like, your data. You're training it on what you like to wear and eat and where you go for lunch and whose videos you hit like on, so it can serve you more videos like that. I was like, so, you are, and your attention and your data is the product. Right. And now with AI, it's true. I mean, Netflix is going to serve you up that show it thinks you like. When you finish The Tiger King, it's going to go, oh, we analyzed everyone else who finished The Tiger King. Most of them clicked on this. Here you go. You're being used by it already. Google Maps, when you miss a turn, that was me in Chicago. Like, I was from Wyoming and used to horse-drawn carriages. I went the wrong way on a one-way, and it's like, oh, rerouting. That's AI, right? I am being used by it. So if I'm not going out and creating with it or building something with it or researching or getting a college degree with it, you are going to be a cog in its machine instead of someone putting that machine to an intentional use for you.
That's so great.
I want to put a quick angle on that. Team consumer versus team producer is how I always term this in my content. And I feel like this is that version of it in the AI world. How are you using the tool? Are you helping? Are you hurting yourself?
Right. And it goes back to the whole attention wallet, right? There's only so much time in the day, right? And so AI is going to actually make your attention more efficient. But your wallet is still, there's only so much you can take in, and there's only so much time in the day. I think it's a dangerous, potentially dangerous dynamic when your choice gets removed. Now, having too much, there's a debate also. If you have too much choice, then you're spending too much time watching and waiting for the perfect choice, right? You're doom scrolling on or whatever, and like just continuing to go on all the different titles on Netflix. But to your point, we need to take control, right? Otherwise, AI will use you. So I have a question for you on your social media, which I love. I love watching your social media. Everybody should definitely follow Aaron on his TikTok. It is absolutely brilliant in how you experiment on social media. I think it's terrific. But I'd love for you to tell the audience a little bit about some of the themes that you feature.
Yeah, so a lot of it is I realize teachers are around high school kids, and for better or worse, we hear how they talk, whether that's the thing they care about in the news, because it's not the election or the war, it's like the new album that came out or the new Jordan colorway. And I'm like, oh, I wish I didn't know this stuff. And I was just thinking one day, I was like, maybe I could put that to use, because the way kids talk, like, you need a translator. And I had looked up on TikTok and other places, Gen Z lingo. And so one day in classic teacher fashion, I made a spreadsheet, shared it with my students, and said, put in words you think I don't know, but should if I'm a high school teacher today. And boom, there's 65 pieces of content. And at the end of class, it's like a study hall. It's not a real class. I'd pull out my phone and be like, okay, teach me the word of the day. And once I got good enough at editing that people would watch them, some of those have spun up in the hundreds of thousands. I think one is between 1 and 2 million, like Unk status. Kids would tell me I'm Unk status. I was like, well, I'm an uncle, but not to you. What the heck does that mean? And I'm like, well, wait, let me just film it. And then boom, it got like 100,000 views in a weekend. Well, there were clearly other people that wanted to know the answer to Unk status. So I learned, like, just capture what my kid was already going to tell me and post it on TikTok. shout out to Jethro. He kind of taught me that. It's like, just document what you already do and share it, because you don't think this. Like, who cares what I ask my student at the end of class about UNC status? Is like, oh, 1.6 million people cared. Apparently, good thing I captured it.
Yeah. Document, don't create, says Gary, right?
So great. It's amazing how you have the word of the day, like the Gen Z slang, or is it becoming Gen Alpha slang, right?
I don't have Gen Alphas in class, thank goodness, for another 2 years, unless they like skipped freshman year. But there is that overlap, and part of the comments I get, they're like, "That's Gen Alpha," and I go, "Guys, yeah, Gen Alpha made it up, but there's actually a different version of that Gen Z uses that's making fun of Gen Alpha's definition." So there are some weird nuances that I wish I didn't know.
Oh, that's so
It makes sense. Does he dig into anything deep enough? There's nuance.
Yeah, there's the boomers making fun of Gen Xers and on down, all the way down the line. So, what's been the thing that you have learned in going to scale? What's the thing that you've learned scaling on social media?
Yeah, well, it goes back to this discussion I had with my wife in the kitchen, and I promised Megan's my wife. I promised Megan it's only good things I'm going to say about her today because she's amazing. And I was telling her what I was doing with AI one day before I had social media, and I was like, I did this and it can do that. I said, it's going to be awesome when everybody figures this out. And she's like, Aaron, no one else is doing that. You're weird. You're the only one who's doing that. And I looked at it, I was like, but it's like on YouTube. You could just look it up. She's like, yeah, but no one cares. Like, you're the only one doing this. And I thought, really? And she's like, yes, you should make a video about it. Just like go in the other room, let me finish the dishes, go make a video. You'll see people will like it. And like all things in my life, when Megan tells me something, I just learn to do it because she's right. And there were teachers like, how do I teach this? Or kids, how do I learn this? Or what does this word mean? And sure enough, if I would just share that, I'd always been doing it. I didn't share it because you don't want to look dumb or have it bomb or get made fun of in the comments. And then you learn, like, actually, that just adds to the fun.
Absolutely. So are you still involving her with your videos? Trying to?
That was a contentious subject at the kitchen dishwashing session the other day. On my TikTok lives, she's more popular than me. Like, half the comments are, "Where's your wife? Is she going to come on and say hi?" They like her more than me. And she had a tradition with senior football players where she'd make homemade syrup and pancakes. So they call them Megan's pancakes. It's PG, I promise. They loved the breakfast that she would make seniors during the playoffs. And so I'm always getting comments like, can Megan make pancakes again? Or make a TikTok video of her making the pancakes.
That's awesome. That's
I
awesome.
think that gets to the authenticity, though, Aaron. Clearly, you are very authentic. It comes across, and people respond to that.
Yeah, and you learn to embrace like your quirkiness. The best compliment I got, I was at a former student's wedding, which I see there's some educators and students in the stream like Matt. Shout out to Matt. You're my guy. Dan actually inspired Matt with some career advice, and your guys' show was on in
Come on.
Matt's. Yes, no, ask him. Put it in the chat, Matt. We watched multiple episodes of this show in leadership class last year because we're doing career stuff. And I was like, why am I teaching about career? I'm a mediocre history teacher. Let these guys teach. Robert, your episode about interns was on there, by the way, in the class. But, those guys, I go back to their wedding and the student came up to me and she goes, "Hey, I follow your Instagram." And I'm like bracing myself, and she goes, "My first thought was, that's so you. Like, it is you on there. You're not fake." And I thought about it. I was like, wow, that's the best compliment. I think that's better than you're funny or you're smart or you're cool. She's like, that's just you in class. And I totally remember you like you are on Instagram. And so I thought that was good. And that reinforced, like, dude, just post the video. Who cares if you had a bad hair day or your skin looked bad or you stumbled a little bit? Like, sometimes that just endears you to people through your content.
Yeah.
So what's next? What's next for you, or how you're going to attack AI?
Well, I'm going to go back to my classroom and learn and get better, because a lot of the stuff I have is theoretical. I think I know how to do it, but you still have to get it to scale with your students. And to Mark's point, if my students can't spell, AI is not the tool. They need the dictionary. They need spell check. But then one of the things it does is it allows you to challenge the top end kids and go, hey, I'm going to turn you guys loose with this use case. Go figure this out and remediate the ones who aren't ready for that. It's like, nope, we need the basics more, or a way to use this tool to reinforce the basics, not do fancy stuff. And, you know, for me, I just got asked, I had students coming back from like a local community college or the University of Wyoming saying, I wish I could take your class again because of the technology, not because of my jokes, not because of my sweater vest. They're just like, no offense, man, you taught us a little bit about history, but the technology was so good. I wish I could come see, because I know you have an updated version of that. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I guess you can't. And a smart person told me, like, you don't need a classroom to teach. And I said, what do you mean? You know, my principal says go to room 2431 and teach these 18 kids. And he's like, no, you have YouTube, you have TikTok, like go buy a domain, make a website. I was like, I don't know how to do that. And he's like, look it up. What? You don't have an excuse to not know.
That's right. Yeah, you can ask ChatGPT or whatever AI to help you build stuff, right? So
I want to share a couple of tidbits that I'm taking from you here, Aaron. I really like your comments around curiosity. You're very curious about how to use this thing. I'm impressed with your lack of ego and just throwing yourself into it. The fact that you involve other people, like that's you have learned more yourself by involving others, and they have learned from you. Also, showing the real you. You don't need a classroom to teach. These are great insights that all of the listeners can put to practice.
Right. And not just for students, but for everybody that, you know, in whatever they're doing in life.
Yeah. And I would say, I want to just reiterate, especially for teachers or parents, I'm both. Yeah, we have to teach our kids and our students things for sure. The AI doesn't change that. However, if you're not taking a moment to say, here's an example, we're doing research today for a debate. And I said, look up these facts however you want. And kids at first are like, I can use Wikipedia in history class. And I'm like, yep, I don't care. If you were on a Saturday, how would you look this up? And one kid's got Snapchat AI, and one kid's got Perplexity, and one's got GPT. And I'm like, teach me how you research. And then after I see that, like, you've taught me how you do it, I'll bring some skills to that you can use. And don't think you know it all. Like, your kids can teach you how to make TikTok videos go viral and how they use AI now. And then I can help them use it better tomorrow.
It's so great. That's so nice. Yeah, I mean, we're ultimately going to learn more from the next generation, right? No matter what. That's how life works, right? So, Aaron, people can find you at aaronmakelky.com, right? It's right down there on the banner that's scrolling by. Or your social, are they all at Aaron Makelky on the socials?
They are. I'm on pretty much everything except Mastodon, because I didn't know if that was worth it yet. But yeah, X, LinkedIn, YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, most of the people I shared the link with are YouTubers, not LinkedIners. I have a YouTube channel. On the website, ABD Ventures in the chat. I don't know if I have the cheat code, but I do have a how to use AI to ace college, because I learned to scale. Like, me in real time can't answer all these messages for kids, or I don't see you every day. So I'll put it on a website. And I told all my students, I was like, if you guys, want this stuff, I made a how to use AI that's not cheating. Like, no English professor in America would fail you for doing what I teach in this course. It's on my website. You can check it out. If you're one of my students, like Matt, I already gave you a code. Like, you can have anything you want for free if you're one of my students, but that scaled better. And again, I learned it in our time. Like, the YouTube video that answers the questions while I sleep is a better use of my time than trying to answer all of them in real time. So on my website, you can see I have 5 free ways to use ChatGPT to write better essays. I have the How to Ace College with AI course. You can book a call if you want to know. I've had some businesses, entrepreneurs, insurance people. I don't know much about insurance, but I know how to use AI to analyze data, and then you just go crazy with it. I'm happy to do that too, and you can book through that link.
That's great. So, Aaron, thank you so much for being on Everything to Gain today. This has been extremely enlightening.
Great feedback
for myself, for Mark. I think our audience really enjoyed this time. Mark, any final comments?
No, I think I love the fact that you're even doing this, Aaron. Like I said at the beginning, before, a little behind the scenes, you're an anomaly, especially in the world in which you operate. And I think that you will be viewed as the forerunner of this whole thing down the road. The tidbits and insights you've brought and shared with the folks here are very helpful. and also very inspirational, that a regular Joe like us could just go and learn these things. It's not, people still have this ethereal view of AI, and you really humanize it, especially for kids. I applaud you.
That's great. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Dan. It's been a ton of fun. I wanted to shout out Hamed in the chat too. You know, we got a viewer from Egypt, which is cool. I don't know if you guys are normally international.
Awesome. From Egypt, yes.
He's helped me get better. The prompting tip that he and I kind of figured out was, at the end of your first prompt, for you AI nerds that are watching, say, and what else would you need to make the best result or give me the best output? And again, that's not AI literacy, because if you tell your kid to take out the trash, if you stop and said, and what else would you need to know to take this out effectively? They're like, the kitchen trash or the shop? And it's like, oh yeah, I didn't give you good instructions.
There you go.
AI is no different. It's just communication.
That's terrific. Awesome. Well, this has been another episode of Everything to Gain. Aaron, again, thank you so much. I'm Dan Yu. My co-host over that way, name's Marky Markangelos. Marky Markangelos, thank you so much. The intro and outro music that you are listening to is by our good friend LJ Tisdale. Thank you so much to the audience from LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch. We really appreciate you being here. Have a good weekend, guys.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate the support.
Jethro, you're the man. Thanks for chiming in. Taught me a lot.
Peace out.
Thanks, guys.